What is up, sister? I am super pumped that you are on my podcast.
So exciting.
Okay, so everybody, just so you know, Jen is one of my best friends, and we do business together, and she's in Canada, I'm in Vegas, and so this is like really fun for me I love all the different people I have on the podcast, and I learn so much from them, but to have somebody who I'm so personally close to, it's like very exciting for me. So I'm really excited to have this discussion about just your experience with trauma and the mental health system in Canada. Like, I can't wait to learn about that mental health system and the work you're doing now with holistic practices and healing and nervous system and all of the things. So I'm really excited about it. Can you, before we even get into your upbringing, can you just tell people a little bit more about like being a nurse, for going from like a conventional nurse role to this holistic nurse role?
Yeah, like what specifically? Because there's a lot.
I think I don't always think people know how intense being a nurse can be, like how it can take a toll on you. Like, I think it's interesting how healers, or not that you're a healer, sorry, but like you're working in what's considered this like healing field, and then you're trashed. It's such a disconnect to me.
Yeah.
And I understand, because even as a therapist, you're like you're trashing yourself by trying to help all these people. It's completely different. Like, you had a way different level of trashing yourself, but it's like, I think it's really interesting how we end up harming ourselves to help others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my experience in nursing, I think really started, like the negative experience really started, a lot of nurses right now are going to tell you that their burnout and, the way that they looked at their career really changed in 2020 and 2021. But what's interesting about what happened to me and my story is that my decline started before that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I knew you before that, and I'm like, you were already, but it's like almost like there's this cognitive dissonance where you're trying to convince yourself because you don't want to betray your profession, and it becomes such an identity. It was the same for me, where I was ready to be done probably, at least 2 years, if not more, 2 years before I was done. But I kept being like, but no, you're helping people, and you can make your own schedule, and all this stuff. And it was just like convincing myself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that was like the most interesting thing. Like, by the time the pandemic hit, I was already done. Like, I had already kind of witnessed the holes in the system, I guess. Mm-hmm. And although I didn't work in an environment that was really part of those holes, like I was an OR nurse for my entire career. And if you know anything about the OR, like, we are so far removed from everything, but that doesn't mean that the culture and the way that administration is handling certain things or how you feel treated or mistreated doesn't affect you.
Totally.
Right? So there's like all of these things that happen outside the double doors of the OR that didn't directly impact me. And I will say this, like, when the pandemic started, a lot of us, because we weren't operating, right? We were only doing emergent cases. There was no elective cases. Everything, like, it was like a ghost town in the OR. So a lot of my colleagues got floated, right, to help in the ICU and do a lot of things. And I was in like a unique place because I was one of 3 staff members that did 12-hour shifts. And so I'm very grateful to my manager that she didn't float me, because mentally and emotionally, I wouldn't have been able to handle that. And let me backtrack and share with you guys why that is. So in 2018, the very end of 2018, but the whole year of 2018, I had a very short stint working. We moved to this rural community, working in a very toxic environment. And luckily I was able to get out of there. So I was worked there for about a year, and it really took a toll on me. But then towards the end of that, when I was already feeling like battered and bruised through my profession, my son got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And navigating the medical field with a 2-year-old and being told you don't have answers and all we can do is manage his symptoms was really disheartening for me. And
Mm-hmm.
any parent who's dealt with a child who is seeing specialists or in and out of the hospital, a frequent flyer in Emerge, will understand just how challenging that is to witness your kid in agony and in pain, but being told, well, we don't know what's causing it. And all we can do is offer you like anti-inflammatories, pain management, and steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And when your kid isn't even 2 years old and you're thinking he's going to be on steroids for the rest of his life, I was like, I got to find out some other way because
Yes.
I didn't want that for him. And so that's really where this whole shift in my own values and the way that I wanted to help people and just this whole idea of holistic being, because I believe it's a being, right? Really entered my life.
Mm-hmm. It was the catalyst.
Yeah.
And then you continued doing your work, and it probably felt like a cognitive dissonance at
Yeah.
that point then.
It
Yeah.
did. So especially once the pandemic hit, right? Like I was
Yeah.
already like interested in like you and I met like in that time when Liam was sick and I was already, making steps towards building a business that I could do from home,
Yeah.
right? And developing those skills because I didn't know anything about it, and so I was investing in myself in that form. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like my soul was being pulled in two. It was like I have to do this because I don't have any other way to pay my bills. Like the way that people were treated from questioning and having their own belief systems and the things that I would hear some colleagues say about other colleagues and all of it, like it wasn't just external, it wasn't just from administration, it was within like the relationship within the department. And I know probably a lot of people who maybe worked in healthcare and other fields, and even now I'm talking to people who are experiencing relationships being battered and bruised because of their belief systems and relationships that used to be really strong, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a really big emotional toll on me because I'm so empathetic, and
Mm-hmm.
people knew that I wouldn't judge them for their beliefs. So I became that person that they would come to for some support as well. So there's that piece.
That's a powerful story in itself, right? That what you just shared. And I think that it's so important for people to understand that it's really okay to change your career. It is okay. It's scary, but it's okay. If you are not truly aligned, if your soul is aching, if you're experiencing cognitive dissonance every day, it is affecting your psyche on a deep level. It's affecting your body, your cells.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that time, like there was I was worried about you. You were like depressed sometimes and like for periods of time. And it was rough. It was rough. Like I knew it was taking a toll on you. I could see it happening.
Yeah.
And it's not even like I saw you every day, right? I would just talk to you. So thank you for sharing that. So let's go backwards now, because I know that there's things from your upbringing that have really contributed to this amazing program that you're launching. It will already have been launched by the time the podcast airs. Tell us like just a snip of the program so that then we can kind of go back and see how that has contributed to this program that you've birthed.
Yeah, so the program is a 12-week self-led online course. So you get access to your own content hub and you work through the program at your own pace. I've made it very digestible because it's made for the working mom, right? The working mom who's like at the end of her rope, like she has nothing left in her tank. And so it's a 4-phase process where we really start by just reflecting and assessing what's actually going on
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how you're feeling, how you're being affected by your day to day, how you're taking care of yourself, or if you are taking care of yourself, that sort of thing. And then we kind of move into more of the physical aspects. And really, the whole foundation is nervous system health and nervous system regulation. That's really the foundation of the program.
Mm-hmm.
But I take a mind, body, spirit, environment approach to taking you from a place where you're snapping at your family and yelling at your kids over spilt milk or zoning out, scrolling on your phone, completely disconnected in your marriage, right? And over the course of the 12 weeks, you're going to start to experience a playfulness and a connectedness and just this whole shift in your being. So, but that we have to look at it holistically, right? Like we can't compartmentalize any of it. It all needs to work together. And so first we got to start with that foundation and understanding like kind of where you're at, you know?
Yeah.
And then we take more of a physical approach. So we look at your nutrition. We discuss the role of gut health and the gut brain axis and like neurotransmitters and nutrients and exercise, sleep. And then we move more into like the somatic or the spiritual piece of it, right? You're religious or not religious, like we all have a spiritual side to how we live our lives. So we look at, different practices, and I teach you different practices to release stored energy,
Mm-hmm.
release trapped trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the final phase is really integrating everything. And so throughout the 12 weeks, you play around with a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I introduce you to a ton of modalities, and we meet weekly for like group accountability calls. And there's a community piece through a private Facebook group. And by the end, it's really about you creating your own, I call it a self-care plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have these tools, you have an incredible toolkit that's full of amazing things that you can do to support yourself, but you're not necessarily going to use all of them all of the time.
Yeah, totally.
You get to play around and through different seasons of your life, you grab hold of those different things.
Yeah, I love this. Okay. What's it called?
It's called the Calm Mom Comeback.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Comeback. That's got some punch to it. Gave me some emotional like when you when you said it. So let's talk about like the foundation of this program, like what it was birthed out of, right? And your journey leading up to, we heard the nurse part of your journey, the career part of your journey, but like let's talk about you as a person and why are you supporting moms and why are you know what I mean? Like let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in a very like emotionally negligent, maybe you could say, home. I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger sisters. My dad was an alcoholic and ended up dying. He died by suicide when I was 12. And my mom owned her own business. She was a hairdresser and she had to work really hard. Even
Mm-hmm.
when my dad was around, he wasn't reliable, right? If any of you grew up with a father with any sort of substance abuse, like he could not be relied on, right? Financially or physically or any of it, right?
I can relate.
Yeah, and he was abusive, like physically, mentally abusive towards my mom, not towards me or my sisters. And so I grew up witnessing that. And I became a nurse because I was told growing up like you need a good career, right? Like something with pension and benefits, and I grew up in a very small town, 600 people, right? So the choices were nurse, teacher, or banker. That's kind of what got drilled into my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so out of high school, I was like a badass. And I also had no self-esteem. I did not think I was smart enough to go to college.
No.
And so I kind of like drifted for a while. And then about a little over a year out of high school, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't waitress for the rest of my life. And I'm sure as hell not going to be a receptionist, right? Those are
Imagine you as a receptionist.
I was a receptionist at a gym for quite a while, actually, and I even did it through university. But so I started, we have this real, the city that I live in, we have this really great organization where young adults can go and like take aptitude tests and like talk to like kind of I don't know if they would be considered career counselors, but I visited there and became like really close with the dude that was helping me figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life.
I love it. This is awesome.
And eventually I landed on nursing. And I applied to nursing and ended up getting denied.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I applied, I was refused. And this truly like fed into the not good enough, not smart enough narrative that I had created, right? And actually, you know what? That was like a little bit before. So I think that that was sooner. But anyways, so what ended up happening is I was like, well, maybe I'll be a dental hygienist instead. I didn't really know. I'm like, that seems good. They get paid better than nurses. That's what I thought about. Like, they get paid better.
Do they get paid better than nurses in Canada?
Yeah, they do. Except for like, it's not, you're not in a union. Like,
Right,
Canadian nurses are unionized. So we got
a dentist or something.
Yeah, exactly. So all in all, like nursing is a better quote unquote career path because you get pension, you get benefits, you get sick time, like stuff like that. But I didn't, like 18, 19-year-old Jen, like wasn't thinking about that. I was looking at the dollar amount, right? Like what's the average salary each career makes? That's what I was looking at, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I just started in general studies. I ended up, because to be anything dental, you need like 2 chemistries, biology, like all of these high science. I ended up dropping out of organic chemistry because my mark was so bad. And then I failed like Chem 101 or whatever. So I was like, okay, I guess dentistry, dental hygiene is not for me. Nursing it is. Because nursing didn't require any chems. So by that time, I was considered a mature student. And because I already had some college courses under my belt, I was accepted when I reapplied. And so that was awesome. I was like, okay, I'm going to make something of my life. I was like the 3rd person on both sides of my family to go to college, right? So that's like also like a really freaking big deal.
It is.
And then I had a kid. And I remember my daughter is going to be 10 right away. And I remember when she was like a baby, looking into her eyes and just saying like, everything I experienced as a kid, you're not going to. Like, I'm going to build you a warm, loving home. And I didn't know how I was going to do this. Like, right. I was just like, I knew within my being that like, I was emotionally neglected as a kid and that wasn't going to happen for my kid.
Yeah.
And so I started therapy when she was a few months old. That was kind of like my first step, right? I was into fitness, I was into health, but it never really dawned on me like the intricacies of trauma and mental health. Hell, I didn't even really know what trauma was. You probably didn't even
label yourself as having trauma at that time.
No. So that was kind of, that first step in me creating this course was making that promise to her and myself.
Yeah.
Really, right? As much as it was a promise to her, it was a promise to myself as well. And I think where we get tripped up as moms is that we will often go back on promises we make to ourselves.
Like all the time.
Right? I know. And I like for 2 weeks, I've been like, I'm going to get up in the morning and go for a walk. And I haven't freaking done it. Right? Like how many of you can relate to that?
Well, even last night I said to my husband, I said, I am going back on agreements with myself in regards to certain self-care. I'm like, and because of X, Y, and Z that needs to be done, or like, we're in this little crazy season because I'm traveling with my daughter. And so I'm like, I need to reel it in and like let go of this to-do list that I gave myself. Like, fuck this. If I don't get it done before I leave, I have to not care. Like, I can't treat myself this way. And of course he's like support. It's not like, he's supportive, right? But yes, it's like an issue. We have this issue as women. It's horrible.
Do you wonder, this is a thought that is like, do some of the pressures we put on ourselves have to do with like conditioning or societal expectations sometimes, right?
Like majorly, yes.
So it's like it's learning too to like give
Yeah.
yourself grace. Like I'm kind of in this really slow down phase of my life, but I'm also having this internal like pulling of myself because I'm not honoring my physical body like I normally do through movement.
Yeah.
Right? And normally that really like invigorates me and makes me feel good. And so it's almost like this programming or this automation that's in my mind that like exercise is so supportive for me, but then not having the drive to do it is like this internal battle that I'm experiencing. And this is kind of like a bit of a sidebar, but goes back to this whole idea of like, as moms, we go back on promises we make, or women, right? We go back to promises we make to ourselves.
Well, it starts before you're a mom anyway, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's really about women and
Yes.
how we're conditioned to betray ourselves all the time
Yeah.
on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And then when you become a mom, it's often now you think that you have to put your child, you do put your child first, but like you think that like,
Self-sacrifice.
yeah, like if you honor yourself, somehow you're betraying your child.
Yeah.
And it's like such a weird, it's like such a demented way. If you really take a step back and you think about it, you're like,
Yeah.
when I sleep well and when I do certain types of movement and I make sure that I'm fed, I am way better as a wife and a mom. Way better. Like, and
Yeah.
that's just like fundamental shit. That's not even like other stuff that I do to film, like fuel myself. And like, I'll give you guys an example. Last night, my daughter, so yesterday was kind of a crazy day. And um I made sure to get out my walk in the evening. I almost didn't do it. And then I came home and she was really struggling because of how crazy of the day was. There wasn't a lot of connection. And connection is like her thing. And we're a very connected family. And she looks me in the eyes at bedtime. I haven't had dinner yet because I did a late walk. Everything was like behind. And she's like, Mom, I'm just feeling really sad. And I just feel like we had no connection today. She's a little older. And of course, like I'm a therapist. So she has like this language that she knows how to use. She's like, and I'm feeling weird. And she was like very distressed. And so in that moment, I'm like, I need to eat dinner. Right. And I'm just like, but I'm also like, I know she needs connection. Like we have not had connection today. Like I'm definitely running kind of like on this, like we got to get certain things done. So I laid down with her and my body was starting to feel like you need to eat. So old me would have been like totally just, it doesn't matter. She needs connection, like whatever. Right. And I said to her, I was like, I really have to make a shake at least, or whatever. And, her papa was there. So we were all like laying there cuddling or whatever. So I was like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And she's like, okay. And so I went and I got my shake and like, they sang and prayed and I just had my hand on her and like it was there. But it's just like a little example of you have to, because I would have gotten a migraine.
Mm-hmm.
And then today would
be
yeah. Like, you see what I'm saying? And it's just like, an old me would have potentially just, my daughter needs connection. I can't step away for 5 minutes. And this is like the battle that we're constantly having as women and as moms. Like that's a perfect little example right there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want her to see that you need to take care of yourself. And so there are times when I'll say, I can't do that right now because I need to make my food first and then I can do it. Or just different things. Or sometimes I'm like, you can get it, please get it yourself. I'm sitting down to eat right now. And like, I really need to fuel my body, and by me doing that, she then sees that she can be that way when she steps into a world, like her world of being pulled and you need to just do for me and all this stuff. Right. Yeah. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's such a good point. But what happened in making that promise to her that like I was going to do what I needed to do is that I've been unwavering in it.
Yeah,
And yeah,
totally.
you know, like some seasons have looked different than others in terms of the investment that I've made, right?
Totally.
And I think that's one of the reasons why within this program that I've created, I offer so much variety
Yeah.
and so many suggestions, is because I know as a mom and as a human being, our seasons look different. So you
Mhm.
have more to give sometimes than others.
Yeah.
Whether it's time, whether it's financially, you know, whether it's emotionally, like there's so many different factors that contribute to it. And um it is still something that I'm deeply invested in.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important when you're investing in somebody to support you and walk with you through this journey, right? Is to make sure that they're walking the walk too.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
So tell us a little bit more about, okay, it started with therapy. And are there some things you learned along the way that made you decide to become and like study the nervous system so closely? Because I think the nervous system is like this buzzword, and you know, anybody can like chat GPT like a little paragraph about the nervous system. It's you know, and we can do little like different things to support our nervous system, but like when it comes to actually getting your nervous system flexible and able to bounce back and you know in a more grounded place, like that's a whole different deal, you know what I
mhm,
mean? Like
yeah.
so what led you to this specifically versus you know you could have done, I mean it's all connected, but you could have been like hormones or fitness or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So in that time when my son was sick and then we moved into the pandemic, I started to notice that things that used to like roll off my back weren't rolling off my back anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was really snappy at my kids. Like I'd be cooking dinner and they were little at that point in time, like 3 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be playing in the living room and I'd scream at them to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it, and I knew that like they're kids, they should be having fun, they should be able to play, but it was like just too much for my system. Like
Mm-hmm.
whether it was like after a day of work or even on a day off or whatever, right? I looking back, I didn't really see an issue with this, but now I see how this is a overwhelmed nervous system to a T. A prime example is that on my days off, I always sent my kids to day home. I could not tolerate being with them for more than like the weekend, essentially, and the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I didn't want to, but I just couldn't handle it. And I didn't recognize that until I decided to start, like earlier this year, we decided that we're going to start homeschooling in September. And I,
My gosh, you did, Jen?
yes,
Wow.
and it wasn't until like after a lot of discussion, you know, between my husband and I and deciding that we were going to do it where I actually realized how far I've come. Like from going to like literally not wanting to spend a day off with my kids. And this sounds so horrible probably to some of you listening, but like I was in sheer survival mode.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, we keep it real around here. And I will be honest that when my nervous system has been really dysregulated, I literally by Sunday evening am like, yes, tomorrow's Monday. My husband goes back to work and my daughter goes back to school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's only been 2 days. Like, and it's just, it's not because you don't love it. It's because the output and the stimuli and the chaos and the disarray and the it's just it's like you know, and if you are somebody who has an intense career or it's like you need rest, well the stimuli from your family isn't rest, and so that's
Yeah.
where actually regulating yourself comes in, you know what I mean? It's not that you have to quit your job or not, I mean maybe, but it's more like you have to learn how to like take care of your nervous system to where it can actually still be balanced and grounded and resilient with the environment that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it's about.
And you know what the best thing is, you guys, is that it's intense when you first get started,
Yeah.
right? Like, but I found, and I do not believe that you ever arrive in this work, like, absolutely not ever. But I do think that you become more self aware and you get a lot more proficient in knowing what practices work best for you. So that when you do get to that state, you can very quickly bring yourself back.
Yeah.
Right. And Andre used the word flexible earlier. And that's exactly what that looks like. Is like not ever gonna there's never gonna be a time where you aren't dysregulated.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like you're going to get
There's going to be
dysregulated.
stuff that
Exactly.
like,
Stuff's gonna come up that causes you to go into a state of panic or into fight or flight.
yeah, agitation. Well, emotions aren't dysregulation, let's be very clear, but
Yeah.
like there's going to be stuff that you experience that you're like, "Whoa, I need to like get grounded." I mean, that's life. Like that's stimuli.
Yeah. At the beginning of my journey, I didn't know what that was though.
Yeah, totally.
Right, and I didn't know how to stop it, like, and I guess when did nervous system come into the play for me? I don't know. I don't even know. I can't even pinpoint a time. Maybe it was like, I guess like through learning about the gut brain axis is where I really, now that I'm like talking this out, right, learning about the gut brain axis, and then beyond how it impacted my son and his inflammatory issues, relating it and learning how it caused me to like start hiding in operating rooms, you know, breathing through panic attacks, and that was never anything that I'd ever experienced before.
Yeah.
And things like that. I guess that's like kind of where I started to become aware of it. It definitely wasn't therapy that helped me with that though. Therapy
No,
helped me
I
process the
listen.
emotions,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
And even in therapy, let's be very real. If it's talk therapy, you're not even fully processing the emotions. You are intellectualizing a lot of
exactly.
times. And we all know I don't believe in talk therapy for very
Yeah,
long.
well, what's
It's a great
interesting,
awareness tool, but once you're aware, it's time to move
okay,
into
but
like healing.
talking about that, like the second therapist that I started seeing, she did a EMDR on me. And I still am not convinced that it actually worked because I was still in such a state of disarray that I don't think that I was able to disconnect with my logical mind enough.
Hmm.
Right? Like when we're doing the eye motion stuff and whatever. I think there were things that I processed, but I think that when I,
You were probably a little dissociated and she didn't recognize that.
yes, exactly.
You know what's interesting? You saying that because my husband just graduated, whatever, just finished a like 16-week intensive hypnotherapy like program with his practitioner. And before she even did any kind of hypnotherapy on him, she did some things with him to actually see like how hypnotizable, like how
Mhm.
much would he actually respond to being hypnotized in the first place, or else it wasn't going to take, it wasn't going. And I was like, that's really good practice because, and I will say, I've done EMDR as well. And my practitioner also went through some like questions and some things to make sure that I was actually going to be able to do like for EMDR to be fully effective for me.
Mhm.
And I think that these are important. I mean, I'm just glad you brought this up because if a practitioner is doing some sort of brain work or rewiring or subconscious reprogramming, sometimes you have to make sure, well, not sometimes, you should always make sure that your person is going to be able to be connected enough
Yeah.
with that practice for it to actually work and for them to really be able to integrate it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. I would definitely say I don't remember, like this was so long ago. I don't know if she had like a questionnaire for me. I do remember connecting with some of it, but I also feel like a lot of the other things that I did after that were a lot more effective for me.
Yeah,
Right?
I think EMDR is great, but I
It's
don't
not my
think
thing of choice.
it,
Like
well, it
personally.
doesn't do the things that like you and I are into. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like it doesn't clear, EMDR is not going to clear a literal trapped emotion out of your like kidney. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And if your kidney is whatever having issues because you have a cluster of trapped emotions or trauma or a trapped toxin, EMDR isn't going to help with that. I think EMDR can be very powerful, but to me, it's almost like a gateway. It's like a gateway modality
Yeah.
into some very deep, like way deeper modalities.
Well, I
It
mean,
kind of clears away some of maybe like those immediate cobwebs of that, to get people a little more grounded. But if you're wanting to like really do some serious subconscious reprogramming, the EMDR is not the deal.
well, and I mean, it's more mainstream, right? So, of course, it's going to be something that if you're seeing a therapist who's trained in EMDR, right? If you're in therapy and they're trained in EMDR, right? That's going to be kind of like your next step. Because that's kind of like, there's almost like
Yes.
a normal flow of how people kind of get into this work, I would say, right? They think, oh, I'm going to go to therapy, and then eventually, like I hear it from my clients in my nursing practice all the time. I have like I see people like one-on-one as a holistic nurse coach in my city, and the biggest thing they say is like, working with you is so much different because we don't like dwell on the past. We look forward to the future, and all of those things happen, yes, and they have an impact, but like I don't need to like dig it all up in order to
No,
make progress.
no.
And so it's really refreshing for people working with me in that environment. I hear it from clients over and over and over again.
Because
Right?
you use hypnosis and rapid resolution therapy techniques to help them rewire their subconscious. Yeah, it's like you need to know just a tiny little bit, but you don't need to have an hour discussion about all the horrific and the pain points and how it made them like they don't need to relive it. You just need to
No,
know enough to like go and program.
exactly.
Yeah, and yeah. And I just think that, well, another thing about EMDR is there's a lot of research on it and it's been very championed, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of these other things that do much deeper healing and rewiring just don't have as much like mainstream notoriety at this point in time. And I don't know if it ever will, but that's just that's a piece of it. And when insurance doesn't cover something,
Yeah.
there's a lot of friction there.
So here's the other thing, like my therapist, and like I said, I haven't seen her in years, but she got trained in biofeedback, but she wasn't allowed to market it to her clients. She
Why?
wasn't really even allowed to talk to them about it unless they asked her. And I never did. I never did biofeedback with her or anything. It's some rule within her college, within her licensing
There's
body.
so much bureaucracy that
Uh,
happens. Biofeedback has been shown to be very powerful.
mhm. I know that now, but like I back then that was like
Right.
in right 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't really, and because I don't know, I just never thought to really, I wasn't sure if it was something I needed, but yeah, I have been hearing more about it. But I mean, that's like the fucked up piece,
It is.
right? Like
There's a
these,
lot of bureaucracy that happens, and it's all it does is hurt people who are coming to get help. It's just like,
and I
yeah.
think like on the other side of that is that's why so many people are going to unregulated professionals now to get stuff done, right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree.
Or like coaches without any certification or any really like true qualifications. And I mean, you can have the argument of like, do you need a degree, and if you have like this skill and whatever, right, and to
Mhm.
help people? I don't know, like I've seen tons of people that don't necessarily have any traditional training that do incredible work. So I mean, there's,
Really? Like what?
well, like people that I've trained in RRT with are just coaches. Like some of them have like maybe a coaching certification, no actual
Like formal
formal
education.
education.
But they're getting certified,
Yes, they
right? So
are.
they
They're
are
getting
getting an
certified.
education.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know your stance on that, but I personally feel that I'm cool with it.
So
Just
am I.
because, yeah, I mean, get a certified. Listen, and this is what I tell people: if you're gonna go do EMDR, you do not go do it with somebody who's had some CEUs. You go with somebody who is fucking certified. They are in your head. Like, hello, right? So there's definitely things like hypnotherapy. They need to be certified, right?
Yeah.
RT, they need to be certified. belief code. They need to, like, don't just people who have like dabbled. No, like you
Yes.
want people who passed whatever certification, but do they need to have a master's in psychology?
No.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Like, and I also have, there's a lot to be said for experiential knowledge. And of course, that's not quantifiable, and that's not a double blind study. And that's not, 40,000 in debt of a degree. It usually is debt of life. But I also think that that matters to a certain degree.
Well, it creates that relatability. Like if I were to come to you and create like this program that I'm going to offer and not actually have lived experience, like I just don't think it bears as much weight because
Well,
I can't
yeah,
help you in the same way.
yeah, it's the embodiment piece.
Yes.
This is really interesting because when I was first a therapist, I did have and I was in family therapy, right? I was practicing marriage and family therapy. I was married, but I didn't have a child. And I was like this early 30-year-old. And I'm like I'm educating parents on parenting. And I had a couple of parents give me a hard time when I really challenged them on some pretty unhealthy behaviors. And the thing that I stood on more than even my degree was I said, I am a child. I am a former child of parents who parented from their own wounds, their own emotional dysfunction, their own lack of boundaries. I said, so no, I'm not a mom yet. You're right. I'm not a mom yet. But I had a mom who did similar things, and I very clearly remember how that made me feel, how that affected me, the things I've had to work through as an adult. I said, and I have the education. I said, so I hear you. And if you need to go see somebody who is a mom to feel like they're credible, fine. I'm like, that's fine. I was like, but I know I'm credible.
Yeah, you
And
have that experience from a different angle, but it's
yes,
still an experience that you had.
yes. And so usually when I said that, like they were like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Right. Because, like I made a promise to myself when I was like 13 that like I will never forget what these things feel like so that I can help other parents understand how they're making their children feel.
Mm-hmm.
Lived experience is very important. It's especially if you're somebody who's taken your lived experience or you are in process of that, right? Because we're always in process. You're taking it and you are transmuting it into like now living like a very embodied life of that more healing piece and that other piece, right? That integrated piece. That's a lot of wisdom in itself. Like that is important. It's not all about credentials and white coats and education. Like I will not give my money. I don't give a shit if you are a doctor. If you don't have it, like if you're not embodied in some way, this includes female doctors who I'm going to talk to you about any of my like hormones or anything. If I can't tell that you are embodied and you have like had some experience, you're not going to talk to me about anything. I have a hormone doctor who went through, and it's a male. And normally I'm not into male doctors, but he has gone through his own hormone journey and he understands male and female hormones well. And he's very passionate about that. And he's had his own journey and he actually shares about it,
Mm-hmm.
about his issues with his own hormones and his wife's journey. And so I'm like, okay, I trust you. Like you get it. It's not just about like I know the chemistry or the science or the biology. Like you actually get it. You know how hard it can be when you're having hormone issues.
Mm-hmm.
And he speaks to me from that place. He's like one of the most compassionate men I've ever worked with. So it's like it's important to align with people who have lived experience, right? You know what I mean? I feel very passionately about like
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think it just also, I mean, depending at what capacity you're working with that person, it creates that connection piece as well.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that connection is something that people are valuing more and more and more as they're choosing their mentors or practitioners or healers or programs or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is that they just really need to feel deeply connected and need to trust that that person is really walking the walk in some way, shape, or form that's similar to what they're about to embark on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like receipts. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, I mean, not to throw shade at anybody, but you know, like the healthcare workers that are obese or smoke and they're like telling you that you need to do all of these things. And it's like, well, I mean, not necessarily that obesity means that you're not active or things like that, right? But a lot of people have an issue with that, right? It's like the pot calling the kettle
Yeah.
black.
Well, I will tell you that when I got divorced and I was really struggling with the trauma around that, I actually took 3 months off from practicing because I was like, first of all, I couldn't hang. But second of all, in my own integrity, was like, I can't be not because I felt like a failure. It's not like if you ever get divorced, you can't help couples stay in their marriage. I've helped a lot of couples stay in their marriage. There's wisdom from my divorce. But at that moment, I was not in a place where I should be stewarding other people on their journey. And that would have been so like lacking in integrity for me at that moment. Like I recognized that, and I would have been going through the motions, and it would have been just not, it would have been from a place of needing money, not, and I just
Service.
wasn't going to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah. And I was like, I have to get myself grounded and through this and to like a healthier place with all of this to where I can support people through the wisdom that I will gain from this. Not, you know what I mean? Like, and right now there's no wisdom. I'm just like going.
Yeah. Well, you were in a trauma cycle.
Yeah.
Like it
So I
was,
took 3 months off from practicing. And I know not everybody can do that, right? Like I had other things going on, another business with that. But it's like, this is what I'm talking about, where it's just like, having integrity, and nobody has to be perfect. But if you're not trying and then you're telling other people to do shit, like what? It's just, I agree with you. I do. I agree with you, you know? Yeah. So I think that that's really important. So I love your journey to figuring out that you have a nervous, well, you knew you had it because you're a nurse, but like that your nervous system actually does what it
well, yeah, but like we don't learn about the nervous
does.
system in the way that I share about it now or I teach about it now. Like we learn about it as like, okay, this,
Yeah, it
you
makes you
know,
poop. It makes
yeah,
it's
exactly.
very
It
like
makes your heart beat, makes right and
yes,
like
it's like very
different,
functional, like the
yeah, and
way
like
that we learn
obviously
about it.
in the OR we talk about like the movement piece of your nerves too, right? Like if you're doing a carpal tunnel surgery, like you got to watch those nerves so you don't, so it like more that physical piece too
Yes.
versus like how its role in managing emotions.
Yes, like stimuli response.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I didn't learn any of that in grad school, and I don't know if like for mental health practices if the curriculum has changed. I don't know. Probably
Yeah,
not.
because you could argue like back then, right? Like that was 20 years ago already. Like there
Mhm.
just wasn't that knowledge that there is now either. So that could be an argument.
Mhm.
Who knows?
But I interviewed somebody who told me it takes an average of 17 years for a new like way of thinking or modality to actually get to mainstream like Western medicine teaching. And
17?
yeah, and also I can't remember the stat, but it was like a huge stat. A huge percentage of modalities that have validity, have efficacy, don't even make it at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
I
offensive.
believe that. I do
Yeah.
believe that. But 17 years?
Right. So
That's
it's
like,
lagging. It's lagging.
yes.
Obviously, then if it's lagging from like it's lagging from any of the, any kind of medical and or mental health education systems, then,
Yeah.
right? Like what it takes to put those things in place, like textbooks and experts, like
Uh,
of course, then I mean, I think about what I learned and it was very powerful, but even what I learned at that point was behind for
yeah.
where we were at those times.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like a really valuable piece of like what we do is that we've truly been ahead of our time
Yeah,
for a
totally.
long time, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I think like so you guys, I have had this program on my heart for 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was like, God telling me it wasn't the time yet, like people weren't ready for it, or like what it was that, I mean, there's lots of different theories that we could throw out there about why it took me this long to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a part of it is, yeah, I just felt like maybe the world wasn't ready for it. But now people are starting to wake up and realize how big of a role all of these things play in parenthood, right? And the interconnectedness of it all. And so, yeah, it just feels like the perfect time now.
Yeah, I also think I mean, I know you personally, so like you're really embodied right now, like on the probably on the highest level that I've ever seen you for your like at your personal journey. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally. I agree with you. Yeah.
And I think that when we hold containers for others, like, yes, like life happens and sometimes, again, it's never perfect. That's the whole point. But when you're a coach or a mentor, you're outpouring, you're teaching people how to live a certain way, you want to be trying to like embody that as much
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as possible because that's the space that you're going to mentor and create from. And
Well, it's the energy too that you bring to the relationship.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know me well. There's been times where I've come to you and I've been like, I am being a freaking hypocrite or like a fraud. Like I'm preaching, boundaries and this and that. And then I'm not even doing it myself. Like I need to recalibrate. I need to
Yeah.
reevaluate. Right. And so it's always a process. Like
Yeah.
life
It
changes
happens to
and
all of us.
yeah, makes you have to recalibrate and reevaluate and all that. But when you're in a place where you are having that awareness and you're able to like say, okay, I need to challenge myself here. I need to, you know, do some either self accountability or some accountability with whoever, my mentor, my friends, or whatever. And I need to recalibrate. That's really important, right? Because that
Mm-hmm.
means you're not living in autopilot, even if you experience autopilot for like a week and then you go, wait a minute, I was in autopilot.
Yeah.
You're not like living from that place, And that's really important when you're stewarding other people's journeys too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, where can people find you? Where can people go learn about your program? Where can people just come and hang out with you?
So you can hang out with me on Instagram or Facebook at Jen Wernicke. Andrea can you put a link in the show notes or
Yes,
something?
the link, there will be all the links in the
Yep.
show notes, no matter where you're watching or listening from.
And then I also have a sweet little guide to help you get started on your journey to stop snapping, right? Like to be able to tolerate your family's shenanigans, right? Manage stress a little bit better. So it's a 3 simple strategies that are going to support you in that. And then there's also, not in the title, but a pretty sweet, savory little bonus in that guide for you as well. So you can download that as well.
I love it. Okay, and then I'm assuming there will be a link in the show notes to your program as well.
Yes, we can do that once I have it.
Okay. Beautiful. So by the time this airs, we'll have it. And so you guys should grab the link to that and check it out as well.
Yeah, and make sure you come hang out with me on social.
I love it. Okay, thank you for this conversation. I think it's been really incredible.
Mm-hmm. One more thing.
Yes.
I do have my Facebook community. It's called Mums Who Snap.
Okay.
That you can also come and join. I offer a lot of free value in terms of different content and stuff that I share in there as well.
Okay, beautiful. So we'll link that in the show notes as well.
So lots of places where you can chill.
You're like everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on TikTok and I'm not on LinkedIn, so I'm not everywhere, or YouTube yet. So no, I am not everywhere.
Today is your YouTube debut. Okay, I love it. Well, thank you for spending this time with me and for all your wisdom and sharing your story. And I know that you are going to make a massive impact with this program, and I'm really excited about it.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun talking to all of you.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next episode.